There's something happening in state legislatures right now that on the surface looks like a pretty simple public safety measure. But when you really start to pull on that thread, it leads to a place I guarantee no one saw it coming. A place that could seriously impact our national security. So today, we're going to pull on that thread and see where it goes.
So it all starts here. In 2026, you've got this trio of states, California, Washington, and New York, and they all roll out these very similar bills. Their target? This growing issue of what people are calling ghost guns, untraceable firearms that you can actually make at home with a 3D printer.
And look, the goal on paper is totally straightforward and honestly pretty hard to argue with. Public safety. The idea is to keep untraceable weapons off the streets, right? And out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. Simple.
But this is where our investigation really kicks off. What if this solution, in trying to solve one very real problem, cracks open a door to something else, something far bigger and way more insidious?
Yeah, a problem that goes way beyond local crime and steps right into the world of international espionage and, you guessed it, national security. That is the question we are digging into today.
Okay, so let's dive into this. To really get a handle on the hidden risk here, first, we have to understand the solution that's being proposed, which, again, on the surface, all sounds pretty reasonable.
The motivation couldn't be clearer. You have people like California Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, who sponsored one of these bills, framing it as a necessary step to shut down a new pipeline for untraceable weapons. I mean, lawmakers see a threat, and they feel like they have to do something.
And they're not just making this up. A 2024 report from Everytown for Gun Safety, a major supporter of these laws, found a jaw-dropping 1,000% increase in the recovery of 3D printed guns in just 4 years. I mean, a number like that, lawmakers are going to act.
But it's the way they're acting that we need to pay attention to. This isn't just about banning certain digital files. It's about fundamentally changing the machines themselves.
So just look at the transformation that these laws would force. We go from 3D printers being these open, all-purpose tools that you can use offline with any software you want, to them becoming these internet-connected, state-regulated appliances that only work with approved, totally locked-down software. It's a whole new world.
And the language in these bills is ironclad. The tech has to be non-bypassable, even for someone who is incredibly tech-savvy. What that really means is locked firmware, mandatory internet updates, and a system where the manufacturer and by extension, the state, has the final say over your device.
So what happens when you mandate a system like this? Well, you don't just regulate a product. You completely change the market. You start creating winners and losers, not based on who has the best ideas, but on who can navigate these really complex rules.
This is a textbook example of a regulatory moat. It becomes incredibly hard, not to mention expensive, for open source projects or little startups to build this kind of compliant, locked-down system. But you know who it's easy for? Big, established companies with closed source systems. For them, it's not a headache. It's a huge competitive advantage.
In fact, this whole model actively rewards what we call a walled garden approach, where the hardware, the software, and the cloud sources are all controlled by one single company. An approach like that pretty much crushes the open source community that built this entire industry from the ground up.
And that brings us to the most critical, and honestly, the most alarming turn in this whole story. Who exactly stands to benefit the most in this new, heavily regulated American market?
Let's just ask the question straight up. Which major company already runs a closed-source, cloud-dependent business that lines up perfectly with what these new state laws are demanding?
The answer is Bamboo Lab. They are a massive, hugely popular force in the consumer 3D printing world, and they're based in Shenzhen, China. Their entire business model is already built on the exact kind of integrated, cloud-connected system that these laws require.
And this is where the story gets really concerning, because back in 2017, China passed its National Intelligence Law, and this law has a requirement in it that changes the entire game.
Make no mistake, Article 7 is not a suggestion. It is a legal command. Any Chinese company, like Bamboo Lab, can be legally forced to cooperate with Chinese state intelligence. They have no legal way to say no.
And all of a sudden, a well-meaning public safety law from California starts to look very, very different. It's now tangled up with the hard realities of Chinese state intelligence.
So think about what this means. The very system that these US laws are demanding, a system where every single digital file you want to print has to be sent to the cloud to be scanned first, that system becomes a surveillance pipeline, a pipeline that a Chinese company can be legally forced to open up for its government.
So why would they want that data?
Well, just take a look at China's big strategic plan, Made in China 2025. It's basically their roadmap to dominate the world's most important tech industries. And what's sitting right there at number 2 on their list? High-end CNC machines and robotics.
And here's the real kicker. Tucked away in the text of these bills is wording so broad that it doesn't just apply to 3D printers. It also covers computer-controlled machines like CNC mills and lathes. We're talking about the exact tools used for rapid prototyping and manufacturing in America's most sensitive industries, and a key target of China's industrial strategy.
So let's just put all the pieces together. A law that was designed to stop homemade guns could end up forcing American innovators, engineers, maybe even defense contractors to send their most sensitive designs and prototypes through a cloud service run by a company that is legally bound to the demands of Chinese state intelligence. The intention was public safety, but the result? The result could be the greatest industrial espionage tool ever created, and we'd be handing it over willingly. In our rush to lock down the workshop, have we accidentally built the perfect Trojan horse and invited it right through our own front door?